And welcome everyone who is watching us today. Thank you for joining us for another GMAT Club YouTube session, this time for our MBA panel. My name is Evan. I'm going to be your moderator for today's event. Many of you have seen me before, and we have a late entry. How about that, folks? You get an additional student to ask questions for. Congratulations. Buddy, we haven't gone into intros yet, so thank you very much for joining. I expect this to be a lot of fun. I think it's gonna be a fantastic event. FUN, and no, not the evil version like you hear Plankton say on SpongeBob. No. F is for friends who do stuff together. U is for you and me. All that good jazz. So without further ado, please let me introduce our panel from CBS. We have Pritika. I'm not gonna do last names. I was already chastised once for that. From HEC, we have Sukanya. From Ross, we have Patricio. From McCombs, we have Kyle. And last but not least, from Emory Goizueta, we have Sam. To our participants, thank you so much for joining us here today. You can unmute yourselves. We're not going to be shy, so please feel free to speak up at any point throughout this event. With that said, I'm going to go in sort of the order that's seen on my screen here and have you guys introduce yourselves, and then we're going to jump into some really fun questions that I know our audience will love. As a reminder, if you hear a question that while I'm asking it that you feel passionate about, please raise your hand, and we will make sure that you get to be one of the people who answers it. With that said, Pratika, why don't you go first? Give us a quick intro.
Yeah, of course. Happy to. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. So my name is Pritika Gupta. I recently graduated from Columbia. I tried to focus more on tech and strategy while I was getting an MBA. And after business school, I'm very sad to be leaving New York City, but excited to be moving to Washington, D.C. to work at Uber.
Sounds very exciting. Kyle, how about yourself?
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me. Thanks for joining the session. My name's Kyle Johnson. I recently graduated from Texas McCombs, and I have relocated to Orlando, Florida, where I'm calling in from today. I have 2 weeks of freedom left before I start my job as a product manager with Danaher Corporation as part of our general manager rotational program. So looking forward to answering some of your questions and giving you guys some valuable insights.
Wonderful. Did we lose Sam? What happened to Sam? Anyways, if he joins, we can have him introduce himself. That's okay. Technical difficulties are going to happen here. My internet could go out, and I may drop off the stream entirely at one point. So should that happen, I hope our panelists continue on with the conversation. I'll join as soon as I can. With that said, Sukanya, how about yourself? What's your background?
Hello. So I'm an HEC student. I feel a little responsible to be the only person from a European school here right now. And so I'm from India. I work primarily in consulting and a bit of investment banking also. And right now I'm in my term 3 at HEC. And I'm going to Yale for the MEM program starting in the next 2 months.
Congratulations. And
Thank you.
We're going to say last but not least, but it's not really last, it's a faux last. Patricio, you're joining us from Ross. Tell us about your wonderful institution.
Perfect. Yeah, so thanks for having me on. My name is Patricio, like you mentioned, born and raised in Mexico City. Before going to Ross, I actually worked at Uber, so funny that Pratika is going there. Here at Ross, I focused on consulting, did my internship, and will be going back full-time to BCG in their Chicago office. So similar to Kyle, I still have a couple of weeks left, but also already packing some of my stuff and going to be moving there in July.
Congratulations. All 4 of you sound like you have really, really great futures ahead of you. You're all going to great companies or exploring additional paths, which is absolutely awesome. Patrice, I'm going to ask you offline, but just so it's out there, BCG, Boston Consulting Group, in Chicago. I mean, Chicago Consulting Group, Boston Consulting Group. Anyways, so for those of you who are watching, the founder of GMAT Club, BB, is helping us here today, and he is very excited to see me for some reason. He sees me on a daily basis, so I don't know why he's so excited. But That's just part of the fun of GMAT Club. We're all so happy to see each other. With that said, let's jump into some questions. And the first question, I believe all of our panelists had some exposure to them. So I'm hoping these don't come as a surprise. The surprise comes at the end when we ask those who are posting questions in the general chat. When they have questions, those are the surprises. These are hopefully very straightforward. And the first one is going to be about your journey. So I don't know if you can show me like on your hands. I hope you can. If somebody applied to more than 10 schools, I want to hear about it. But how many schools did you apply to? So just, again, quick show. So I see 4, 5, 4, 6. Okay, so we're in a ballpark, 4, 6. Wonderful. So let's see. So I guess the question around that is, why did you apply to 4, 5, or 6 schools? Who would like to explain their process? Quick show of hands. Who would like to take that question? All right, I see Kyle. So Kyle, you're up. Sam, we'll get to you in a minute.
Yeah, we're happy to kick it off. So I applied to 4 schools, and kind of my process was to have 2 serious contender schools, 1 stretch school, and 1 safety net school. So the programs I applied to, Yale was my stretch school, McCombs, which I ended up going to, and Ross were my serious contender schools, and Jones at Rice University was my safety school. And I guess the way that I arrived at those decisions, I kind of thought through my professional aspirations with product management. So looked for programs that had some strengths in those areas, and specifically in the tech and biotech spaces. So McCombs and Ross were my 2 strong suits there. Yale was would have been nice to go to, but that was a stretch school for me. And then I was living in Houston at the time I was applying, so felt pretty confident in my ability to get into Jones as a safety school.
Very nice. Probably makes a lot of sense. And I assume most of our panels had a similar experience. You had that 1 or 2 reach schools, you had your 2 or 3 core schools, then you had your 1 safety school. Does that sound about right? I see a lot of heads shaking yes. Sam, let's hear from you.
Hey.
So why don't you give a quick intro about who you are, where you're going to school, and then how many schools you applied to.
Okay, sure. My name is Sam Litchfeld. I'm originally from Cumming, Georgia, which is about 40 minutes north of Atlanta. I spent 6 years in the poultry industry. I have a master's in animal science from the University of Georgia. I went to Emory thinking I was going to go into consulting. I had a lot of offers and actually just secured an opportunity working at Chick-fil-A in their quality supply team. The question that you asked, I applied to 6 schools, and a lot of that was based not only on the stretch schools, safety schools, and the schools that were actual contenders, as Kyle said, but I also was very regionally focused. My wife, originally I was living in Charleston at the time, so we wanted to stay Southeast regionally. So Atlanta, Duke, or Georgia Tech, Emory, Duke, NYU, Ross, and UNC.
That's a lot of schools.
Want to make sure I can get in somewhere.
Not to be exactly, not unexpected. And again, as I said earlier, we may have some technical difficulties. I don't know if you were watching, but I literally went off screen for a minute there. So,
yep.
Yay, technology. In fact, I can see them delayed on camera too. Oh, so much fun. I hate this. So our second question is going to be around resources. And I want to know what resources you leveraged to learn about the programs you applied to, but specifically the school you ended up going to. So with that said, who would like to answer this question? Any hands? Okay, so I saw Patricio first, and then Sam and Pratika were second and third. So we can hear from all 3 of you on this one. So Patricio, start us off. Tell us about what you used to learn about Ross and the wonderful, wonderful, absolutely amazing school that Michigan is. I'm not showing any favoritism just because my shirt is deep, deep blue and I may or may not love the university.
We lost him again. Oh, man. Yeah, so I mean, I'll kind of talk about some of the resources that I used specifically also as an international student. So I was in Mexico, and what I looked for initially were a lot of events that a bunch of different MBA programs did in Mexico City or in the surrounding areas. There's a couple of, I know GMAT Club announces some of these events. I know some other websites and services announces events where a bunch of schools like McCombs, Ross, Duke, Emory come to Mexico City and kind of do their initial presentation. I think that helped me get an initial like lay of the land of the different options. Once I started kind of like making some decisions and to learn more about the programs, I think the main two resources was just like reaching out to alumni in your city or in your area, or even like cold calling if you don't have anybody close to you in Mexico City or wherever you're from. And then the second thing was like literally following the schools on social media, going to their YouTube channel, and just like getting a feel of their brand, what they try to show, what differentiates them. And I think that gave me a good sense of how to target certain schools.
Very, very nice. I'm gonna pretend like I heard all of it, but again, I'm having internet issues. So, Sam, why don't we hear from you, buddy?
Okay. When it comes to resources, Emory does a great job with their career management center, not only pairing up companies to come down to Emory, give presentations, give talks, but a lot of it works with a lot of the resources come from student clubs. So for me, it was a consulting club, but we have general management operations club. We have a marketing club. All of those help you gear up for the interviews. Evan, you're struggling, bud. Beyond the Career Management Center and the clubs, as Patricio already mentioned, the alumni network is really great at all of these schools. The alumni are there to help you out, especially if you're not sure of what firm or what organization you want to go work for. There's probably an alumnus or alumni who works there who you can ask questions about the organization, get a feel for the culture, and make sure that the company that you are interviewing for and interviewing with is also the right fit for you. So I'll leave it there.
Wonderful. And yes, I am struggling. The irony being my internet is really strong right now, so I don't know what's going on. Pritika, do you want to go and explain yourself well, not explain yourself, but explain how you use the resources available to you to learn about CBS?
Yeah, I think Sam and Patricio added that. I think all of the all of the points that they made were perfectly valid. The only one thing I would add is that more than finding current students who you can talk to as resources, I would say current students who actually share your career path or who kind of have followed the path that you would like to follow actually ended up being really helpful. Because sometimes, for example, like happy to use my school as an example, but Columbia is really finance focused, and I was very clearly trying to move out of investment banking and go into tech. So it didn't matter like what the strength of the school was if I couldn't find somebody who had actually followed that path that I wanted to look for. So I think that's the only caveat I would add.
Wonderful. Did anybody have any other comments that may be different from those who already spoke? Did anyone have anything that they disagreed with? No? One. Sukanya, please.
Yeah, so I attended a few career fairs also. I spoke to the admissions team. So HEC had this thing where you could actually, send your profile to them for a review and they get back to you to understand if you're a good fit or you're not a good fit or something like that. I think that was again very helpful.
Very nice.
Evan, you're back. You're good.
I am. I apologize to all our viewers. I apologize to our panel. This is the worst I've ever seen my internet go. If you watch some of my videos, you know that I'm a happy-go-lucky guy. I like making jokes, and right now none come to mind because I'm just in a full-blown panic right now trying to keep my feed going. So let me ask this question before my internet goes out and before it kicks me off again, so we can hear from all of you while I try and restart it. What process did you use to make your final decision? I know some of you said that it was based around the fact that you got to a core and not your reach school. Did anyone have any different? Did anybody have a different experience? Let's see some hands. Who wants to answer that?
Well, I'm happy to kick off like how I made my final decision. You heard a little bit about how I chose which schools to apply to. The way I got to my final decision, between Texas McCombs and Michigan Ross was really, I had a checklist that I kind of went down, professional opportunities. Did I feel like I had equal opportunities to be successful at both programs? Yes. School culture, was there extracurricular activities that I was interested in and wanted to be involved in? Was it in a part of the country that I wanted to spend 2 years at? Yes. And then really at the time I was applying, it was pre-COVID. So I was fortunate enough to visit both programs in person. And that's really what gave me the biggest insights. Just how it felt on campus, sitting in on mock classes, engaging with the career staff. I think a lot of programs that are represented here today have some sort of virtual interactions where they can give you a sense of what that feels like. And some may have in-person opportunities available now or in the fall. But what it came down to for me was really, which program felt like it was going to be home for me. When I set foot on campus at McCombs, I felt like I could be myself. It felt natural. I felt welcomed by students and faculty. It felt a little more catered towards me and who I am. So that really is what guided my decision. And I'm sure that sentiment is shared by everybody else that's represented here from their program. So it's really a personal feel that you're going to have to find for yourself. I don't think we can really tell you which school is the best fit for you beyond a certain point.
Yeah, if I can.
Who wants to go next before my internet cuts out? Please, somebody.
I can jump in and just kind of follow up on what Kyle said. I agree completely. I think the initial list of schools were more of a quantitative thing about career opportunities, the class size, how the classes are taught, if it's close to home, far to home, and those things that you can hopefully try to put some sort of, rating or score into to kind of like help you. But once you have hopefully 1, 2, or 3 opportunities to actually choose from that you're accepted, I think Kyle's totally right. I think it goes more to the qualitative part of how you feel in the city, how you feel in the school, and how you connect the same way that you make friends or you meet new people, right? Like, do you see yourself being friends and growing as a person and as a professional in the next 2 years with the people that you're meeting or you're talking to or alumni? So yeah, I agree with Kyle completely. I think the tie-breaking vote, if that's what we want to call it, really goes back to the people and the people you meet and the community aspect that you feel.
One thing I do want to just take note of, make sure that you're applying to a school that gets you to where you want to end up being. You're investing a lot of money in yourself with all these programs. If you want to go into tech, for instance, and maybe 1 or 2 students has gone to tech in the past year, that's probably not the right school for you, right? Make sure that even though there's a great culture fit and there's a lot of great people, at the end of the day, if you're not getting the job that you want out of this, right, those factors are very important. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dismissing those. What I am saying, though, is make sure the school that you're applying to based on their employment history, get you exactly where you want to be. I think that is also super key in this.
I think I would like to add a little bit to what all of you have said. So I feel, I mean, I would not look at my school or any business school from only the perspective of getting a job right now, because I think this is a brand that you carry with yourself for life. And you have to be very cognizant of the fact that you are going to be a part of this brand too. So it should kind of resonate with you as well, that you'd be representing this school and the kind of learnings that you will have, of course, and along with the kind of learnings that you will impart to your batchmates. Because if you look at European B schools, most of them are very international, and the exposure is very different from a lot of other business schools. I mean, I'm sure you all will have a different perspective.
Wonderful. By the way, so my camera is off. My internet has seemed to stabilize a little bit. It looks like Pritika has done the same. Again, my sincerest apologies to our panel and to our students. Or maybe Pritika's back. I'm speechless. But I will continue to try and read these questions. And should I absolutely fail and my internet really go down, Kirsty can take over behind the scenes and lead this session.
Yes, so let me jump in here and try to help out. Apologize for all these issues. But one, the questions that we had was, what do you hope the MBA program will do for your career?
I'll start real fast. I really wanted to go into consulting. I got multiple offers from MBB, Big Four firms, and ended up finding an opportunity outside of it in operations. I really took a deep, hard look at myself and what I wanted in my future. And I wanted to travel, but not travel full time. I wanted a job that was well paying, but I didn't need to break the bank with it. I wanted to be home at the end of the day. I'm married. I'm going to be celebrating my 5-year anniversary pretty soon. So it's about that time that we start thinking about, thank you, Kyle. It's about that time that we start thinking about having kids. So for me, it was trying to find a job that could really fit me and my lifestyle and what I wanted out of it. And ultimately I was able to find that role. But that's not to knock any other career paths out of the MBA experience. Again, I was gung-ho toward consulting and got tons of opportunities. So the MBA program did wonders for my career, to answer the question shortly.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. I really appreciate that perspective. Anybody else want to weigh in on this one?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. And then Patricia, I saw your hand up too. So for me, I was a career switcher. So prior to B school, I spent 7 years working for GE in the aviation industry, supply chain and manufacturing capacities. And through those experiences, I kind of found some exposure to product management and developed a passion for that. So I wanted to transfer out of the aviation industry into the biotech space, specifically as a product manager. So the MBA was an avenue for me to gain some skills that would apply to that profession and give me kind of some inroads to the new industry that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So by strengthening up my business acumen, giving me the networking skills to penetrate that new industry, that was probably one of the most valuable things that I got from the program, in addition to the network that I developed with my classmates and the recruiters. So it panned out. I was able to get a job at a target company in a target function. So I'm evidence that it can happen, and so is everybody else here.
Yeah, just a follow-up question on that. So how do you feel like McCombs specifically has helped you with that transition in your career?
Yeah, so a few things that McCombs did specifically for me. They have a huge focus on product management. So a number of workshops that I attended over 2 years. There's a career advisor that is specifically dedicated to product management. And one of the professional fellows organizations that I joined was called Health Innovation Fellows. And that's kind of a healthcare and health tech specific organization that's focused on connecting students interested in the intersection of healthcare and technology by giving them exposure to startups and companies that are in that space, helping with networking. There's a class component associated with it with kind of a micro consulting project to give you hands-on experience in that industry and stuff that you can put on your resume. So that was a really eye-opening experience for me, and I'm very thankful for that organization. McCombs has similar organizations for other professions. There's a marketing fellows group, operations fellows, there's a graduate consulting group. So they have kind of these framework foundational organizations to help you really zone in on your target professional area. So whatever you're interested in, there's an organization that will help you get there.
Great. Thank you so much. I know, Patricio, you had your hand up as well, right? So go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, totally echo what Sam and Kyle said. I think all MBA programs that we're representing, and I think we mentioned, really help you and prepare you to and hopefully match you with the right career path and right opportunity that you want to make most sense of your professional career, but also, like Sam was saying, of your family. And I think more and more companies and MBA programs help you get to the place and job that really like fulfills what you want to get out of the experience. But I also like, what did I hope it would do? I was also thinking more like long term, coming from as an international, getting this 2-year experience. I was really hoping to build a strong network that would help me in my career for the next 10, 20 years. I don't exactly remember where I read this stat, but I think recent MBA grads change 3 times, their jobs change 3 times in the first 10 years. So I mean, it's one of the things that it's going to help you. The network of the school is going to help you set up for the future, and it's hopefully that these 2 years will help you grow as a person and professionally, and continue to network and continue to have a good career trajectory for the next 10, 20 years. So a little longer term focus was also a big part of what I was hoping to get.
Perfect. Thank you. Anybody else want to jump in? Okay. Kind of a follow-up question on that. We had a question in the chat about what you were hoping the experience would be as you're applying, and then maybe how that has changed during the course of your MBA. So I know some of you alluded to that maybe you were going to go for one option and then you changed course a little bit, but how did that factor in when you were applying?
I can jump in here. So to be really honest, when I applied to CBS, I applied after 5 years in investment banking, and I thought, okay, this makes sense. I'm going to go into private equity and call it a day and then be there for like 50 years, right? But the one thing I did want to try while I was in business school, and I think being in New York really does provide you with this opportunities to work for a startup. And I actually have spent the last 2 years at business school. I thought I was just going to join this company maybe for a semester. Ended up spending 2 years at this beauty startup, joined their founding team, have been working on product development with them. And I think that single-handedly, like that experience of like building this company with my co-founder has actually forced me to consider a career in tech, or just like what product management, similar to what Kyle said, or product building could really look like. So I think Rohan on the chat just asked a question about like changing your life goals, and I feel very compelled to say that it is 100% okay. And I in fact implore people to really question their motives before you follow your curiosities. And I think that I have personally done that, and it's stressful in that you have to consider different career paths, but I think it's ultimately rewarding in that you find yourself in a more authentic career to where you are at a point in time, rather than where you think you're going to be. Because I think a mistake that many people make, myself included, is that when you're applying and you say in your essays where you want to be in 3 years and 5 years, you're kind of standing at the precipice of something and you're making a claim for where you think you're going to be, and you don't even account for what 2 years will do for you. So I think just keep a little bit of buffer for where you think you're going to end up, because I think you could kind of surprise yourself. So.
Yeah, it's definitely great to keep an open mind as you go through this process. I know it can be very transformative. Anybody else have an insight on that? Sam, go ahead. You're on mute, by the way.
Now I'm on mute. With regards to the application process in particular, like when you're talking about what career you want 3 years or 5 years out, like make sure there's some logical organization as to why your background may or may not fit with that. I was a career switcher just like Kyle was, just like Pratik was now. Like there's always a way that you can connect your past to what you want your future to be. Just make sure you are drawing those connections and making it clear as to why you'd be a good fit. That's something that all recruiters or MBA admissions teams are kind of interested in hearing as well. They don't want to hear like, oh, I want to go into IB because I hear they make a ton of money. Like that's not a good reason to want to go in there, right? You have to understand what drives you, what motivates you, look internally and say, okay, these are the things that make sense for me. And this is why this next step in their career is where I would like to be. And the MBA is how I'm going to make that jump, right? So that's the clear connection you guys need to make on the application process.
Yes. Great tips. Thank you so much for that. Switching gears a little bit, one of the questions that somebody asked was, when talking to alumni, what kind of questions do you ask that you feel give best insights? And I know a lot of you are current students, and I'm sure you had the opportunity to talk to alumni and current students, but maybe even what advice do you guys give as current students to new applicants? Go for it, Sam, and then Patricio.
Yeah, when it comes to talking to alumni, I think some of the best questions that you can ask start with the three things that I always go for, right? People, culture, and work, right? Ask about their day-to-day, really understand what the work is like, what they're actually going to be doing, and is that something that you could see yourself doing, right? Don't just get to know one alumni at that firm. See if there's 3, maybe 4 or 5, however many, right? Try to get to know them all and see if it's a place where you could see yourself working. Like, is it conducive to your personality? And then lastly, ask about the culture. I know it's a pretty generic question, but try and understand what drives the company and what motivates people. Because if the culture is a work hard, play hard type of situation, you're the type of person that, you know, like likes to get the work done, but like doesn't need to stay up till 10 o'clock working, then it's probably not the right fit for you. So just be really mindful of what's important to you and then ask those questions. So I think when you're asking about what's insightful for an alumni perspective, it's not a general question that may be insightful for everyone. It's what's insightful for you. What are your priorities, and can that alumni answer that question for you with regards to the firm? So hopefully that answers the question.
Yes, fantastic. Thank you so much. Patricio, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would only add, like, when you're talking to an alumni about the school that will ultimately help you select the MBA program, I think we mentioned this before. Being honest about what you're interested in will make your questions seem genuine and sincere. So if you like food, like ask them about like what the favorite restaurant or bar there is in the college town that you're applying to. Like get a sense of like what Sam was saying of the people and the culture. Just ask them what they did on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night. How fun it was to go to the stadiums if you're into sports or things like that. Like try to connect to them at a human level. And that way you get more out of these conversations and you build a true connection that might even serve you in the future when you're looking for a job or in life, who knows? Rather than maybe sometimes we get a little bit too involved in questions around GMAT scores and my letter of recommendation and what is this accounting class going to teach me? I mean, at the end of the day, those things are important, but getting a sense, I think we've all mentioned it, and I think this is a common theme in most of these chats. It's the culture, it's the people, it's what are you going to do these 2 years, and what are you going to be connecting to, and what are you going to be getting the most out of it?
Yes, absolutely. I think that culture and fit have a huge play into selecting the right program for you. But Kyle, you had your hand up. If you want to go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on, agree 100% with everything Sam and Patricia said. But with regards to talking to an alumni about your program, something that I always asked was like, what would you have done differently that would have better prepared you to get where you are today? Or what do you think was the most underutilized resource at the program? Because when they're looking back, they're starting their job and like, oh man, I wish I would have done office hours with this person more because of X, Y, and Z reasons. So that can give you kind of a leg up to an underutilized resource when you get on campus. And then I also like to ask to be connected to somebody else. Whatever conversation you're having with an alumni or current student, like don't leave that conversation without making another connection, whether it's somebody that's another foodie in their organization or somebody who was involved in an organization that they can give some more insight to. That'll only help strengthen your network and show true interest in whatever it is you're trying to learn about.
Yeah, fantastic tips. I think that definitely helped answer the question. But Sukanya, I'd love to hear from you and the European perspective as well about that.
Yeah. So what I'd like to add is I think it is a little important to be do a little bit of research before speaking to anybody, whether it is a current student or an alumni. And sometimes, people just reach out with the expectation of understanding everything right from the basic to the end. So that can get a little heavy for a lot of us to answer. I think you have LinkedIn, you have Google. The use of these resources should be extensive and trying to get a little bit of information before you try to connect, and then ask questions which can help you understand whether you fit into that perspective, that culture, that school, that company. Otherwise, it will not lead to a very fruitful conversation, I feel.
Yes, definitely. And I know it's been a challenging year with everything having, been online and trying to make those connections. And I know there have been pros and cons to that. But having gone through this kind of crazy year, I guess the kind of question is, how has the MBA program met your expectation? And I know your experience might be a little bit different than those coming in if they get to be in person this fall, but I'd love to hear some of your insights about that. Go ahead, Sukanya, and then Pratika will go to you.
Okay, I'll let Europe kick it off first. So, the experience is obviously impacted because of COVID, and a lot of things which could have been done otherwise did not happen. But nevertheless, the school has done really well in providing us with resources and with a lot of things to the optimum capacity. Like a lot of things didn't happen offline, but then some interactions and some events that we had online have been fantastic. Again, I think SGC is known across Europe for the MBA tournament. So the format had to be revised a bit, but it happened nonetheless. And HEC is again known for this thing called the executive committee, where a few students are handpicked and you have these mentoring and coaching sessions with CEOs, and they're like from Europe, from across the world. So I think those formats were delivered brilliantly. I think in amidst the pandemic also, things have been very good, and I wouldn't want to point at the school saying that, hey, you did not give us this or that. I think every school is trying their best to provide the optimum resources, and it has been very good.
Good. Yeah, I'm definitely glad to hear. I've seen schools adapt in numerous ways, and so it's great that your experience has been positive. And Pratika, what about you?
Yeah, I'm just going to echo a lot of what Sukanya said. I think it's been 100% worth it, actually. I think you learn to measure your life a little differently when you go through a pandemic. Maybe you measure it in terms of, I don't know, like pretty grateful that I have a job, or like you're grateful for the people that really like helped tide you over when things get a little difficult. So I think in terms of measuring what you got out of an MBA, that might have been impacted for the class of 2021 and even 2020 to a certain degree. But the other thing also is that I found that access actually became almost easier when there was a pandemic. And by that, I mean online events. So let's say you want to get in touch. I was actually had the opportunity to be president of Columbia's entrepreneurship organization. And personally, when it came to like reaching out to major speakers, like if it was fintech or consumer, they had a little more time to jump on a Zoom call and share perspective, or just like even to share their insights than they would have been if we had to ask them to come all the way uptown, right, like to 116th Street. So I think in that way, it's been interesting to kind of see what did you get versus, you don't know what you don't know. But I think a good enough metric of what we have been able to work through has been access, actually. So just worth pointing out.
Fantastic. Do you expect that to continue? I mean, I know that people are eager to get back in person, but do you see a lot of more online events in the future?
Yeah, I think especially for when we a large part of what CEO or Columbia Entrepreneurs Organization tries to do is to have a lot of LATAM focused fintech companies or startups also kind of on the map, or at least speak to students. And I think knowing that the format of a Zoom chat can be engaging, it can be insightful, it can also still feel intimate, is actually really important in trying to figure out what we can do with that going forward, as opposed to, working with people's PAs to figure out when they're going to be in New York City next. So I think it's been interesting to realize that you don't have to miss out on certain experiences just because people aren't in the same city. And it's forced us to consider, the more exposure than we could actually give people in the club compared to what we were doing earlier.
Fantastic. Any of the guys want to speak on this about your MBA program meeting your expectations or anything on that? Okay, Patricio?
I'll touch upon two things that I think were very, very particular to our class and what happened with COVID in 2020. The first one has to do with I know some schools and Ross in particular have an internship prior to the actual summer internship where you're working. At Ross, it's called MAP. MAP became virtual. It's one of the biggest selling points and differentiators for Ross. It was virtual. It was completely different. I think we missed out on the cultural experience of actually traveling around the world, but it prepared us virtually for the summer experience that we were going to be getting with our companies. And totally echoing what Pratika said, leadership at these companies that we interned at were much more available because they knew it was a Zoom call rather than traveling and having to book appointments and being in person and doing big events. So that was one advantage. I think in the summer and in the internships, we made more connections virtually than we would have been able to make in person. And also as an added bonus, a lot of times Ross students, and I'm sure this will be echoed by everyone on the call, we would be outside of campus during summer, which is probably one of the nicest months. We were all here. Some things were closed down, but really got a chance to explore the city in the summer, which is a completely different weather, got a chance to go to the lake, to the river. That's one thing. And then the second thing that I just wanted to add, I think it was on top of COVID, I think 2020 with everything on race relations, the election, I think it was just such a different year where conversations that I bet wouldn't have happened normally across groups, across people at MBA programs happened and really challenged, I think, everyone to kind of develop new relations, listen, become an ally. And I think that was not something that I was expected, but it was an added benefit of making the most of the time that we were given, of getting to know our class and really like expanding our worldview, our cultural view, and understanding the people who we're working with and studying with more.
Yes, thank you. And kind of on that note about, the cultural and international experience, we had a question that I'm going to try to summarize a little bit here, but he's asking, what is the strength of international students applying to specific business schools? But I think to maybe broaden that question is, how has this last year, have you been able to have those international students and those relationships, so you've been able to cultivate those the same way maybe as you did the first year of school? Sam, go ahead.
So at Emory, we put the first year class in what's called core teams. And this is a team of between 5 to 6 students that you're going to be doing all of your group projects with. Because we were in a virtual environment this past year, it allowed for the international students who could not come over to Atlanta to be able to participate. We've had international students in Hong Kong, Beijing, India, Japan, Georgia, the country, and all on different time zones. I know some people had to flip-flop their sleep schedules. So I know people in India and China were up really late at night. And the guys from Georgia were also up pretty early in the morning. But then you got to see some of the international or the domestic students actually switch their schedule up to try and accommodate that. But that's how we were able to get a lot of the international students involved. And I think, and the other students can speak for their schools, but I know we had a slight drop off as a result of the pandemic with our international students. But we were looking to get back to maintaining our 1/3 international students within our student body. So we're pretty psyched about that.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, Sam. Did I see somebody else's hand on that one too? No? Okay. So we are almost out of time, and I feel like it is appropriate to ask this question. Is there anything you would do differently? And whether that is in your school selection, I saw somebody had asked a question, should you wait a year or two to make sure you get in the school you actually want to go to? Or maybe through your MBA program. I know it's kind of a broad or multifaceted question, but if you have any points of things that you would do differently, we'd love to hear from you.
Is this specific to the application journey or like our time on campus, or both?
I think it could be both. I mean, with the topic being selecting an MBA program, I think, current applicants would say, what is something that you would have done differently during the application process? But if there's also anything that sticks out about your MBA program, feel free to share that as well, because that can play into your decision as you're applying.
Yeah, I guess I'm happy to kick it off with an application process response. I think that for me, some of the most valuable conversations that I had during that process were with current students, but I did not do too good of a job at getting broad perspectives from students at the programs I was looking at. I was really had tunnel vision in talking to students that, we kind of mentioned it before, that had similar backgrounds to myself or were going down a similar path that I wanted to go down. But I wish I would have asked to be connected with students, like talk to international students to hear their perspective and how, I could stand to benefit from engaging with the international community on campus and, folks who are involved in different extracurricular activities that kind of piqued my interest. I think the more information you can get on your program of interest in general will only help you make a more informed decision. So that would be my one piece of advice, is just make sure you talk to as many people as you can.
Yes, thank you. Anybody else have a comment on this? Patricio?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a two-part. I think we were asking what would stay the same and what would change after what we learned from COVID. I know that a bunch of schools added a lot more virtual events and virtual visits to learn a lot more about the school and do panels such as this one about their particular school and their particular culture. So kind of like what Kyle was saying, I talked to a lot of students or current students when I was applying, and maybe I didn't do that good of job of actually like attending all the events and becoming quote unquote like the expert on what differentiates each one. That would be one thing, taking advantage. I know that they're putting more emphasis, schools are, on virtual visits almost and getting to know the program. And then if at all possible, I didn't do it. If I had done something different, I would have liked to have traveled and visited some of the campuses. I know that Kyle mentioned that that's how he came to his decision. between the schools. Me and my wife, we had to kind of like make the decision from far away and distance, and using the contacts we had developed, and just getting kind of like a virtual feel for it. But if I had to do something different, I would have liked to have traveled, get to know more campuses, get to know more schools, and talk to people on the ground.
Yes. Good. Thank you. Anyone else? No? Well, good. Sounds like everybody was happy with their decision. And I think that going through that process and hearing about it is definitely going to help the applicants that are coming in today. So I really appreciate your time. I apologize if we didn't get to everybody's questions. Please feel free to join us the rest of this week and the following 2 weeks for more MBA Spotlight sessions. We should be able to address some of those questions, especially like profile evaluation related questions, in our chat room at 10 a.m. each day. Thank you to all of the people that were here today on this panel. We really appreciate your time. I know time is precious. You're busy, but really, really appreciate it. So thank you all. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.